You've heard this thing about ivermectin. I know. Like, seriously, are we still talking about this? It's really important for a group of people out there to start with the top one. See if you can frame out the bottom one. It's really important for a group of people out there to continue to push this notion of ivermectin having been a solution to COVID, because they want to push this narrative of how we're the truth tellers, and also we have been subjected to an unprecedented censorship campaign. Right? I mean, like, we're down to 44,000 cases or so a day on average, still hovering around 1,000 people dying. That is a lagging indicator. We were up around 800,000 infections on a daily basis just a couple of months ago. Not even. So this ivermectin thing, and we're seeing more and more antivirals out there. This ivermectin thing is all about trying to prove a point that they were right, that the ivermectin crew were right. Who is still on this beat? Dr. Jordan B. Peterson. And here he is on March 7th. This should be a bombshell. Remember, he's a doctor. He's an academic.
Dr. Jordan B. Peterson.
He is a doctor. He's an academic. It's about truth and integrity. This should be a bombshell. Treatment with ivermectin is associated with decreased mortality in COVID compared to remdesivir. And it is a study in ScienceDirect.com, or it's a paper, I should say. Treatment with ivermectin is associated with to evaluate the difference in mortality. Patients treated with ivermectin, you can't read the whole thing. And it gets at least 17,000, maybe more. I don't think he's deleted. Is he deleted? I don't believe it is. And so he puts that up March 7th. Scroll down. And the next day, Iakov Efimenko, March 8th. Hi, Dr. Peterson, first author of the paper. That's referring to him. I think the information and data is being crudely misrepresented and misinterpreted. This is an abstract, in parentheses, not peer review, from a conference I presented at. We did not submit the manuscript for a reason. Weak evidence. And he had one retweet and one like. No, the numbers may have changed.
Yeah, I have an update on the numbers. Now we're up to 72 retweets. So, not triple figures yet compared to the thousands that Peterson got, 6,000 that Peterson got, and 800 likes. There's a little bit more. I'll put it up here. And Efimenko now says, so people are saying, can we please ratio JP on this? And Efimenko says, doesn't seem to be interested in having the conversation, but the reality is such that if they're willing to put these brittle bricks of evidence, such as my abstract, into the house they are building, tells you a lot about the strength of their evidence. Right.
Now, he writes this a day later. Peterson never responds to it. And of course, there are a bunch of people. I mean, there's no way that Peterson doesn't know about this. And then play a clip of this video. It explains just how impressive it is, that this student who wrote the paper, this PhD student who wrote the paper, was in pulling it because they realized it was not good. And this video gives you a little bit. Now, how many views has this video gotten? Only less than about 3,000 views. Okay. So nowhere close to the misinformation. And we should say it's not just Peterson, right? There are others who are pushing this. That other guy, the nurse, the British nurse, also hopped on this thing, and he gets, I don't know, 1 million views.
Yeah, Campbell, crank.
Here's this guy is putting it out. What's his name? Professor Greg on YouTube. You should check him out. And here is a video attempting to contextualize the data. But basically, all you need to know is the front part where the actual author of the study pulled it months and months ago. Go ahead.
Welcome. Once in a while, we get an opportunity to see the process of scientific misinformation happen in real time. We're getting that opportunity now, and it's because of the misrepresentation of this conference abstract that I discussed with the first author yesterday. It'll be linked up here. As I reflect on this, I'm really, really impressed with Yakov Efimenko, the first author. Consider his position. He's a medical student. He's been doing research in urology. He was brought into a project. Let me show that project. He was involved in this project, which was published last year in the Journal of the American Medical Association. He's acknowledged in this project. He had been doing other research, and then on that basis, he went forward and started looking at a database that has lots of information, as he discussed, and he started looking at COVID and different treatments, and he ended up doing a piece of work on comparing, in this retrospective cohort study, comparing ivermectin and another treatment, remdesivir. Now, these are very different treatments. Remdesivir is an intravenous antiviral. Ivermectin is taken orally. So that means remdesivir is always given in a hospital setting. Ivermectin is not. Patients have very different characteristics, as you might expect. There were lots of things that they didn't control for, but he did the work and put the work out in a conference as an abstract. And it was part of this conference last year. And just last week, the conference abstracts were published in a special issue, as happens very often in journals. They'll associate with a conference, have a special issue with conference abstracts. Now, in the meantime, Yakov and his co-workers wrote up a full paper, sent it out. They got feedback. They had identified, and the reviewers apparently identified, a number of issues that ultimately made them decide not to move forward with it because it wasn't strong enough. Now, as a young scientist, as a young researcher, Yakov is learning a lot. And
all right, yeah, I mean, that's basically the story. And he pulled it. He said that we're going to pull it because we found out, because I'm, young and learning, and found out there were problems with the study.
And I would just like to say the whole idea that it was involved in this conference to begin with is proof against the sort of Brett Weinstein and all these charlatan narratives that it's not being looked into, and it was always being looked into. And there was this mix of between it's being centered in the media versus there's a conspiracy of the doctors to suppress this, which is what all the Weinstein and a lot of Joe Rogan's gurus were suggesting. And that was a complete lie.
A complete lie. It was their own ignorance about the way these papers get developed and about how the research happens that made them think that there was some type of conspiracy to keep this down. This is a perfect example of it. They hijack the process. They jump into it at one point where it is not, this is not evidence. It's basically it's basically watching a detective go around saying this guy's interviewing people.
I would recommend, there's a Skeptic's Guide to the Universe podcast that I've liked. It was one of the earliest podcasts I got into. And if you listen to any show like that, you find out that you can't trust just one study of anything being even given a news release, right? There's all this sort of scientists found a study that says drinking wine makes you jump high or something like that. And studies, there's individual studies can say a lot, but the process of science is reproducibility and stuff like that. And they're basically capitalizing on people's ignorance of that sort of dynamic.
And I think also operating on their own ignorance of that dynamic, and also an inflated sense of self, and a persecution complex, and a desire for clicks. And when all of those things converge, it is an overwhelming tsunami of incentives. And this is a great example. Now, but of course, the 3,000 hits that this guy got, the 200 likes that the author of the study got, will compare to nothing, because I have no doubt it's not stopping with Jordan Peterson or the British nurse guy. And that once it goes to those guys, it just like spouts out, and they're all going to be within days. They're going to be talking about this. Tim Pool is going to be talking about that ivermectin study, which shows in Florida that it was more of remdesivir. And the fact that I'm saying remdesivir shows that I really know what I'm talking about because they compared it to ivermectin. So come on. I mean, this is, and yes, the ivermectin thing, it's old news. It's irrelevant, but they're still fighting this war. And there's a reason why they're doing it, is because they're trying to maintain their credibility when all of the evidence suggests that they have no credibility. So it's important for you to spread that video. We'll put a link to that guy's video in this, when we cut this up in our description. We should also put a link to the Twitter exchange too, I guess, although this is good enough. But honestly,
there's a few folks that won't respond. There's a guy, Debunk the Funk, I think is his. I'm looking for it now. I can't find it. But and then another woman who we've played, and including this Professor Jeff guy or Professor Greg, that and Campbell won't really engage with them. He says they're just looking for clout.
Right,
so.
Right. That is the way that you protect your rear guard. Anybody who is in the business of supposedly informing the public and uses clout as I'm not going to talk to them because they're a clout chaser. I think we have shown that we will talk to some of the greatest, most self-proclaimed
clout chasers
in the world. Because the best way to stop a clout chaser from getting at least the proper clout is to show that they're full of it.